If Sullivan's Crossing gives Maggie and Cal a wedding without Sully there, then I genuinely think the moment will feel incomplete, no matter how beautiful the scene looks on the surface. Because this is not just about romance anymore. It is about history, forgiveness, and the one person whose absence still hangs over Maggie's future, even when she is trying to build a new one. A wedding can close a love story, sure, but it can also expose everything still unfinished around it. And right now, the one unfinished piece that matters most is Sully. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Breakdown Epic. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Today, we are breaking down why Sully absolutely has to come back for Maggie's wedding, why his return may be more important than the wedding itself, and why Season 5 has the perfect chance to deliver the most emotional payoff this show has ever done if it gets this one thing right. Because in my opinion, this is not just fan wishful thinking, this is story logic. If Maggie and Cal really are heading toward marriage, then Sully's absence would not just be sad, it would feel like the show left part of Maggie's emotional journey unresolved, and that would be a huge mistake. Let's start with the biggest point right away. Maggie's story was never only about romance. Yes, Cal is central to her future. Yes, Ilium complicated everything. Yes, Season 4 forced her to stop hiding from what she actually wanted. But under all of that, Maggie has always been a character caught between two versions of life, the one she came from and the one she is trying to choose. And Sully is tied directly to that split. He is not just another supporting character who would be nice to have around.
He represents family history, emotional weight, unfinished healing, and one of the deepest parts of why Maggie became who she is in the first place. That is why his presence at a wedding would matter so much. It would not simply be a reunion scene. It would be a confirmation that Maggie has truly arrived at a life she can stand inside fully. Now, let's be honest. If Season 5 really gives us a Maggie and Cal wedding, it cannot just be treated like a romantic reward after a long season of drama. That would be too small. The show has already pushed this relationship through too much for a wedding to function like a final kiss and some music swelling in the background. If they get that far, the wedding has to mean something bigger. It has to say, this is no longer about indecision, no longer about the past dragging Maggie backward, no longer about whether she belongs at the crossing. It has to say she chose this place, she chose this life, and she is standing in that choice completely. And if that is what the wedding is supposed to mean, then Sully being absent would feel wrong. Not because every family member has to be physically present in every big life event, but because in Maggie's case, Sully's absence is not neutral. It carries emotional meaning. It changes the emotional temperature of the scene. This is where I think the writing opportunity gets really powerful.
Imagine Season 5 spending most of its time not on will they get married, but on what does this future actually look like. Tracy may still be part of the bigger picture. Daily life may start pressing in. Real responsibility may test Maggie and Cal in ways that romance never could. And while all of that is happening, Maggie could still be carrying the quiet ache of one person not being there to witness the life she finally built. That is not melodrama. That is exactly the kind of emotional pressure this show handles best when it slows down and lets things breathe. Now, here is the what if that I think makes this theory really special. What if Sully does not return at the beginning of the season? What if the writers save him, not for a cheap shock, not for fan service, but for emotional timing? What if Maggie and Cal are moving toward the wedding and everything on the outside seems to be coming together, but inside Maggie there is still this one quiet grief she has not fully named? Then, right before the wedding, Sully appears, not to derail it, not to create drama, but to finally complete the circle. In my opinion, that would hit so much harder than having him around the whole time, because then his return becomes part of the meaning of the wedding itself. Maggie is not just choosing Cal, she is stepping into a life with the past finally looking at her and saying, yes, I see who you became. That is big. That is the kind of moment people remember. Now, let's talk about Cal, because this matters for him, too.
I think one reason this theory works so well is that Cal is not threatened by Sully in the way another ex or another romantic obstacle would be. Sully's return would not create triangle energy. It would create emotional gravity. It would show whether Cal truly understands the deeper history Maggie is carrying and whether he is secure enough in who they are together to make room for that pain, that reunion, and that healing. Personally, I think Cal being there when Maggie and Sully reconnect could be one of the strongest scenes the show could write, because then the wedding stops being only about Maggie finding love. It becomes about Maggie being fully known by Cal, by Sully, by the crossing itself. And honestly, that feels much more in line with what Sullivan's Crossing is at its best. It is not just a romance show. It is a community and healing show. So, if you give me a finale-level wedding moment, I do not just want romance. I want emotional completion. Now, let me rewind for 1 second, because there is another reason this has to happen. Season 4 already did the hard work of getting Maggie emotionally honest. She stopped running. She stopped pretending she could live halfway in one life and halfway in another. She made a choice. So, Season 5 should not just test that choice. It should reward the growth behind it.
And Sully's return is the perfect way to do that because it forces Maggie to stand in front of one of the most important people in her history and say, without words if necessary, this is the life I chose, and I am not running from it anymore. That is a far better emotional payoff than just seeing a dress and some vows. Now, let's do a character contrast for a second, because this is where the emotional logic becomes really clear. On one side, you have Cal. He represents Maggie's future, stability, chosen love, the life she is actively building. On the other side, you have Sully. He represents roots, origin, family tension, the emotional ground beneath the woman she has become. And that is why both matter. A future without roots can feel shallow. Roots without a future can feel like a trap. Maggie's wedding only fully works if the story lets both of those parts of her stand in the same room. That is what makes the moment whole. Now, I'm going to lock in a prediction here. I do think Season 5 will move toward a wedding. I do think the relationship with Cal survives, but I do not think the biggest emotional moment of that storyline will be the proposal or even the vows. I think the biggest emotional moment will be Sully's return, and Maggie realizing she does not need to split herself between who she was and who she wants to be anymore. Those two versions can finally meet.
And if the show lands that properly, then yes, I really do think it could be the most powerful scene the series has ever done. Before I wrap up, here is the fast-fire version of why this matters. Sully is not just another returning face. He is part of Maggie's emotional foundation. A wedding without him risks feeling incomplete, not just sad. Season 5 should use his return as emotional payoff, not as random shock. Cal's role in that reunion could prove how strong the relationship really is. And Maggie's future only feels fully chosen if the past can finally witness it too. So overall, yes, I absolutely believe Sully must come back for Maggie's wedding. Not because it would be sweet, although it would be, not because fans want it, although they clearly do, but because it would make the story emotionally whole in a way a romantic ending alone cannot. And in a show like Sullivan's Crossing, that difference matters more than anything. But anyway, that is my breakdown of why Sully's return could be the key to making Maggie and Cal's wedding feel like the ending this story actually deserves. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you think Maggie's wedding can really feel complete without Sully there? Or is his return the one emotional moment Season 5 absolutely cannot skip? I will catch you in the next one.